So the theme that we have today is navigating uncertainty while in college. Navigating uncertainty while you're in and out of college, right? So I'm gonna give y'all a little story time, right, before we really get into the meat of the topic, right? So I'm gonna give y'all a brief intro of who I am and just who I've been throughout college, right? So currently I'm a senior. My last year, last not my last semester, but my last year, second to last semester. And I've kind of just been all over the place since my freshman year. People might perceive it that way, but I came in as a psychology major, and I'm like, okay, I want to help the world here. But then I'm like, it's too much science. So I became a business major with a minor in psychology. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna use people's psychology against them. Sounds bad now that I'm more mature, but hey, that's where I was. I was a school DJ. I learned how to really just DJ. I don't know. That was just a hobby that I decided to do when I came to college. Don't know why. And I also tried out for the football team for my school. Didn't make it, but then I just didn't make it. But then I did poetry and art and music and all of that, and that really changed me and helped me become the person that I am today. So yeah, and then I did computer science. I don't know why I did computer science. But then I went back to business, and yeah, so yeah, I've kind of just been all over the place. Not that it's just been fun and games and I don't know what I'm doing. I applied for 180 jobs, and every time that I applied, it's just like, what is the job market? What are they looking for? Who do I need to be? How do I need to flex myself? And what do I need to put on my resume? And I applied to 180 jobs, and I've only gotten 2 internships since I've been in college. And I'm pretty sure this is the case with many college students. I'm pretty sure if you're listening, you're probably a college student right now, or you're coming out of college, or you're planning on going to college, or maybe you're just a parent that's just trying to figure out how do I help my child. So I hope that I can give you a little some with what I'm saying, right? So I wanted to lead into my first part with my first point with navigating college, really. Well, navigating uncertainty while in college and out of college, right? So my first point was, if it wasn't clear at all, like in my story time, I needed to define my self identity, really. And what does that mean? What does self identity mean? How do you identify? How do you show up in the world within the scope of the collective universe, within the scope of the collective world, right? The collective consciousness that we have. How do you show up with who you are? What is your personality, your morals, your standards? Of course, I'm pretty sure you know self identity, but just to kind of say it out loud, I feel like we know what self identity means if somebody asks you, but do you cultivate that, right? So I really had to define it. And once I got to college, and it's no more parents telling me what to do, when to do, feeding me, it's like I had to establish a type of independence. And within that, I learned that America just moves way too fast in terms of, I did not even know myself really until I got to college. I'm not saying that's the fault of the education system, but you spend 8 hours a day in college. No, not in college. Oh my gosh, 8 hours a day in high school, 8 hours a day in middle school, in public, in elementary school, and you don't really get to learn about yourself, how to properly work with others, how to love, what to love, how to heal yourself. It's a lot of things that you don't really know. And what do they prioritize? They prioritize math, English, science, and just a lot of things that you probably might look back and be like, damn, I don't even remember any of those things. And it's not that they teach you it so you can remember, but they kind of teach you how to think critically. So I'll give that to American education. But my point is, when I got to college, I'm trying to develop my work identity, and I didn't even have really a full self identity, right? So once I got here, right, I had to recognize myself outside of family, outside of friends. There was a lot of space for isolation, for people might call it loneliness, but time to really see how I show up without being interacted with external entities, if that makes sense, right? I had to rediscover love, how to give love, how to receive love, and that takes practice. It takes time and it takes practice. You know what I'm saying? You have to crash, you have to burn. And yeah, when I got to college, I was in a 2 year something relationship, or about to be, whatever the case is, but I still had to learn how to adapt and what is love really. And I had to redefine really my relationship to beauty in a type of way. How do I define love? How do I define beauty? How do I define just even speaking with myself, right? So, yeah, that was just my first point. Your work identity and your self identity. That is really how you can navigate college, or navigate coming out of college. I feel like you really have to invest in your self identity, who you are, right? So I think that's going to lead me to my second point, which is your passion. And I know you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, people always say follow your passion, follow your passion. What does that mean? I will teach you in layman's terms. In simple terms, I'm really going to teach you what that means to me. So, passion, it really means for me, your life's education, right? Based on the body that you're in, the soul that you have, and the body that you are put in, your circumstances, your parents, right? Your friends, who you've meet, who you've met, who you've encountered along the way. What type of life's education have you developed? What is life requesting of you to learn, to expound in, to develop in order to be a productive human being in the world, right? What did life teach your soul? You can't, I feel like there are so many things going on in the world. You can't defeat hunger, poverty, racism, sexism, and everything in between all at the same time. It's damn near impossible, but you can work on what God has shown you in your life. God is not going to show everybody the same points, the same things. Everybody has a different family, everybody has different friends, and everybody has different circumstances, right? So I would say get to the roots of your issues in life and work on them. For example, I wrote some things down. If you've had a complicated relationship with love or with beauty or lack thereof, wouldn't you want to work on the roots of that, which is in society, what are beauty standards? What are the standards for love? What is love perceived as? And what love really is in the world? So maybe you might want to work in psychology or sociology, but you also might want to put your own twist on it. So that's why I said your own passion, right? That's just one example. If you dealt with a lot of poverty or like, issues in your area where you just didn't have access to a lot of resources, access to a lot of food, what would you want to work on? Maybe community development, right? Maybe some nonprofits, maybe working with, I really couldn't tell you where exactly, but maybe working somewhere in that area. What is the small part that would help, that would have helped you in your childhood, that would have helped you in your regular life, right? If you've dealt with a lot of physical ailments or you had a grandparent or uncle that dealt with physical ailments, right? You might want to work with medicine or work in your field as a doctor because it'll be more fulfilling to you rather than if you experienced, poverty and then you go and be like, all right, then I don't know, I'm gonna study science. It's not gonna work with you in your mind because your life's education did not direct you there. For me personally, oh, sorry, another example I wanted to give. Like, if you're over policed in a neighborhood, you might want to work into law and public policy. It's a lot of things get to the root of your issues. For me personally, my life's education, I feel like I've always been into entertainment in a way, not to like perform and be out here doing what I'm doing right now, speaking on a podcast, on a YouTube. It's more so I loved always to make people laugh. People might say, oh, everybody was a class clown. But no, I really love to make people laugh. I love talking to people. I love speaking. I love really reasoning and communication. That is a big thing for me. And once I found kind of something like a third space in college where that was possible, expression was possible, I said, okay, now that I'm going to make it my life's mission, but this is going to be a project within my life term that I'm going to pursue for a little bit. And I've pursued so much, as I said, throughout my college journey, which has only been 4 years. I've become so many different people, from a psychology major to a DJ to a football player to a. There were so many different elements of me that I developed over the time, and I just kind of put them down when I was done with them. There was no need or urge for me to DJ anymore once I did it for I think a year or maybe less than a year. Like I did a few events, and I'm like, you know what? It's cool and all, but I don't like people come to the table telling me what to play. So I'm not gonna DJ no more. You feel me? But that's what I would just have to say. Look at your passion, and your passion is based on your life's education. What is life teaching you specifically? Do you need to be a grade A student getting all straight A's, or did life tell you that you kind of need to cope with your emotions because of what's going on at home? Because of things that you may have experienced as a young child that you might not have been ready for, right? So, what is life requiring of you? I feel like life didn't require me to get grade A, to be a grade A student, to get straight A's. As much as that was emphasized in my household with my dad, with my mom, with my grandma, everybody, my grandma's a principal. As much as that was emphasized, it didn't really fit well in my head when I got to school and seeing my environment. Sometimes the courses were a bit not really challenging, so I'd get distracted. So I'd be working around and talking. I'm like, why aren't we really in class talking? Like this is an amazing third space. The only third space I really knew growing up was the church. And it's like there's a lot of things that you can say and cannot say. Obviously, it's a church, but it's also like for me, that was one of the only third spaces that I knew. I couldn't really afford to go to too much camps or too much spaces because that is it's just where we are really in America, right? So yeah, that's my second point. For my I'm still on my second point, but I would just say co-create with the universe, right? And following your passion, it's about co-creating with the universe. God can't help you if you don't know anything. Really, God can't help you heal the areas in your life's education if you don't know anything. If you're getting a sign from God, God is saying like, your family does have a lot of trauma you need to unpack, and you say, yeah, I agree, and you don't go and learn anything about karmic cycles, your karma, soul contracts, different spiritual entities. If you don't learn about whatever you want to learn about, whatever suits, you're happy. If you want to learn about Buddhist principles, Christianity, Muslim, the Muslim faith, whatever you want to learn about, really. If you want to read all about love by Bell Hooks, whatever you want to do. But if you know that your family has a lot of trauma, you're like, yes, I really want to work through that because I love my family, but I just can't deal with this part. And God is telling you that you're seeing it with your life's education, but you don't co-create with God. You don't use the tools that you have. Where would you really go, right? How can you heal anything if you don't know anything? You might say, yo, that's wrong. And they're gonna ask you, how is that wrong? And you're gonna say, well, because I don't like it. You won't sound about ignorant to them, right? So that's what I gotta say. So the next thing is to be satisfied with your passion, right? Be satisfied with your passion not being your primary source of income. Decenter the pursuit of income. It is killing you. Decenter the pursuit of income. A lot of people in college or not, you can see the job insecurity, right? But let's really establish what insecurity means. Insecurity means lack, right? You feel like you're lacking in something, or maybe you feel self-conscious, maybe because of the opportunities that are available or not available, right? But the media will flush job insecurity so that you will settle in a way. You'll probably look at all of this. You'll be scrolling every day, looking at the news, looking at media like, damn, there's no jobs for me. The media said it. Don't believe everything the media will say. They're gonna flesh that into your mindset so that you will settle, right? So I would say again, use your life's education because we have so many institutions that just aren't serving us that could use some development. And then you find a job there, but you have to know what you want to improve. You can't ask AI what you should improve and then follow AI's blueprint. You have to make your own blueprint based on your life's education, right? If I'm reading, right, versus just going through a quick tidbit of what AI said. Reading takes time. It takes 30 minutes. It takes 40 minutes. Where are you putting your attention, right? But again, we have so many institutions that aren't really serving us. If we think about law enforcement, that people hate the word abolition, but it really just means deconstructing, right? How can you add what you know about what needs to be done in your community to law enforcement, right? If we talk about schools, if we talk about basically the way children are learning right now, going into a landscape that has already evolved, what are children in sixth grade learning algebra for? Or eighth grade learning algebra for if the world 4 or 5 years from now won't even require that from them? You know what I'm saying? Not to say cancel math, but let's evolve our curriculums, right? So we look at education, look at the healthcare system. That there are still a lot of disparities in how much we trust the healthcare system, right? If we look at government, that's all I'm gonna say about government. If we look at the entertainment industry, and I'm not talking about TV and this and that, I'm talking about really 2K social media. There are a lot of things that can be cultivated in order for us to thrive and grow and evolve. Again, you just have to look at your life's education and think about what exactly do I need to fulfill in my life in order to evolve as a human? How will my soul take the next steps to the next life? For me personally, maybe I might have a love gap, or maybe I might have something in my childhood that I need to heal. And I'm gonna search through that specific trauma. I'm gonna journal it down and be like, well, why did I feel this way? Well, why do I feel this way now? And how will I feel in the future? And therefore, if I'm experiencing it, since we are all connected to a collective consciousness, I'm pretty sure more people are experiencing it, but in a different font. So therefore, you have to really, again, it just takes some deep introspection. Not even that deep. It really takes journaling, right? And you could journal half a page of what you want to fix. And when you look at it, it'll look like, this don't even make sense. This don't even seem possible. You know, what is this? How can I even do anything from here, right? It's gonna look like my first time journaling. It'll probably look like, I want to change the world and I'm gonna stop poverty. Okay, doesn't everybody want to do that? Hasn't everybody been wanting to do that since whenever, since it became popular, since it became known. Okay, so I probably looked at him like this don't even make sense. But as I journal daily, 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 I'm just like, okay, well, this is the specific part that I can help, maybe within my personal community, and even me being the change that I want to see. It'll promote different changes within the universe, but it just starts with you, right? So, oh yeah, to the point of deconstructing a lot of the institutions that we have that aren't serving us. When they talk about job insecurity, you can't find housing in a burning house. Look at what the house is made of. You know what I'm saying? You can't find housing in a burning house. So when I say that, you can look at what America has built for you. You can look at what, maybe your grandparents or maybe your parents that said like, nope, education is the way. You can look at it, look at the blueprint, and be like, I really see what you mean, but I'm not seeing what you mean completely. So therefore, you take that blueprint. You also take the blueprint from China, from Jamaica, from Mexico. You take all of these different blueprints of houses, and you figure out what is the perfect house for you. Literally, pick up a pen and paper, get back to dreaming about what you want your world to look like. We have free will. You can create your own world, not in a day. Rome was not built in a day, but you can take step by step by step by step. Every say that you have 3 hours to spare every day. Use 30 minutes. Use 45 minutes of just that being you, just dreaming, even putting it on paper. If you don't complete it, I thought I heard something ringing. If you don't complete it, somebody else will just because you put it on paper. That spirituality of the wooden pen or the wooden pen, the wooden pencil, or it doesn't even have to be a pencil. It could be a pen on paper that comes from the trees, that comes from the earth. It's like it is stripped from the earth, and now you're putting something back into the earth in a way by using the paper. You know what I'm saying? You can type on your phone and you'll just have a bundle of nothing, but there's nothing like using your bone, using your hands to kind of, it's hard to kind of explain it, but if you're looking at me on YouTube, then you can kind of understand what I mean. Use your pen, use your paper, use your hand, and kind of put that energy into the universe. But yes, that goes into my fourth point, which is tied into financial insecurity, right? The debt that we care about, the job insecurity, and stuff of that nature. Insecurity, again, stems from lack. Feeling you out, English, it feels like insecurity stems from lack, but it also stems from feeling like you are without because you haven't really looked within. Feeling like you are without something because you haven't looked within, that you have everything that you need in a way. A lot of people in the 20s, I would say, at least in the social media realm, when I was deep into social media, I could see it, and I was trying to be in the world, not of the world, and you kind of get the two mixed up, the lines get blurred, whatever the case is. But I feel like a lot of people are trying to keep up. Obviously, you hear about the rat race, but think about the rat race in a construct type of way, in terms of not only do you have to keep up with the person next to you, the person on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, but you also have to keep up with nepotism. People that have their wealth handed down to them, right? People that have certain positions handed down to them. You might see an 18-year-old, 20-year-old with a BMW, like, damn, that's a nice car, and this is why he has this. Ain't no 20-year-old had no job that's getting him no BMW. That's what I'm thinking in my mind. So therefore that wealth is passed down. Therefore that social currency is passed down. You're trying to keep up with somebody who has their whole, not whole life set up, but their life set up in a way where it benefits them. But it's not because of what they worked on the inside. It's not because of their self identity, but more so the work identity of their parents. So why are you trying to kill yourself to keep up with that? And of course that is an extreme example, but think about everything that you kind of try to keep up with, right? Everything that you're able to see all at once, and then you look at your life like, what am I doing? Because you put all your attention on social media. You put all that you put all that psychic energy on looking at other people. So of course your brain, your ego is going to be like, well, why don't I have this? Why can't I do this? How come he's the same age as me and is accomplishing this? Or she's the same age as me and is accomplishing this? It's a lot to keep up with, right? So I wanted to get into specific points. When will you get to a point where you feel satisfied, right? So say that you did have the red BMW. There's going to be somebody with a red McLaren. There's going to be somebody with a Bugatti. It's like, it's always another step. And you have to ask yourself, when exactly will I be satisfied? When will enough be enough? And if you don't have a good answer for that, you're like, nah, once I get my 5-bedroom house, you're going to have the 5-bedroom house. You're going to look at somebody else and be like, you know what, I don't know if I even want to live in this state anymore. So when will enough be enough? You have to really define it, right? But also, the media is used to flush these themes into your world, right? Think about Love Island, right? And even though I hope that y'all don't drag me, if anybody even listens, but I hope that y'all don't drag me when I say Love Island because I, I understand it's entertainment, right? But I'm just using it as a specific example so you could see how it affects the subconscious, right? When you look at Love Island, you think about vacation and you think about the amount of people going on vacation. But then me personally, I'm also thinking about tourism, right? And how it can negatively affect a foreign country. And Love Island is flushed there, and you kind of start to think of, well, maybe I'll find love on another island. So when your friend says trip, you kind of think, okay, yes, trip. We need a vacation. We need an escape from what we're experiencing, right? But yeah, so there it's flushed into the media in a small but subtle way, and you never know what these companies are investing in. I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm saying keep an eye out, right? A new car, new phone, you look at the comparison, right? Hair maintenance that a lot of people do every 3 months, every 6 months, whatever. It's money, right? The best fit, the best shoes, new iPhone that no one cares about 3 years from now. Think about what you had bought 3 years from now, the type of clothes that you had wore 3 years ago. If you look at some pictures, you'll be like, damn, I'll never put that fit on again in my life. And I say that because think about the clothes that you probably plan on getting next week for Christmas. You may never wear that again 3 years from now. So what is the point? Not to say what's the point, you gotta wear clothes, right? But it's like, what's the point of putting so much emphasis on these items to inherently keep up, right? I was gonna do not even a big story time, but I think it was my eighth grade year, so a couple of years ago. Damn, like 8 years ago. Get old. But like, yeah, in eighth grade or nah, it had to be sixth grade. But I had emoji sweatpants and emoji sweatshirt, right? And I begged my grandmother for it, and she got it for me. She got me two sets, right? And I wore it a couple of times. And like looking back, even in eighth grade, I'd never wear that. Of course, that's an extreme example, but there are certain things that you will just not wear with you, wear again. You know what I'm saying? So no one will care about it 3 years from now. Really, you have to think about really in the future. Like, if I get this new thing that I think I need, I get this vacation, and yeah, we're gonna go to Jamaica and have fun and have a good time. Of course, you might build a deeper connection, but why couldn't you do that at home? And 10 years from now, are you gonna think about that time like, yeah, we had a good time then? You might, but do you want to spend your time reflecting on the good things that happened, or would you want to develop a deeper connection with your friends, but also with yourself, with your human identity, right? So that's why I said work identity versus self identity. The next thing is eating out, right? Getting DoorDash or even going out to eat. And I just hope that y'all stick with me on this point because we waste so much time in school, and they stripped home economics or home education, home economy, home ec. I just know it as home ec. They stripped it from the schools. It was taken out of school. I don't know why, and people don't know how to cook for themselves, right? So therefore, you're eating things that aren't even nourishing you, and you don't even know how to cook for yourself, right? And we spend so much time on social media, so much time on the game. It really takes away from the time that we have to learn because we're already in school trying to get our education that for jobs that kind of do not exist for a lot of people. So that might also add up to the financial insecurity, but also just the job insecurity. The two are tied. Like, all right, if I don't have a good job, then I can't keep up, but also I can't even keep up with how I eat. And it's like, it's a lot of things that you might feel like you have to keep up with, right? So I would say take 1 or 2 days really and track where your loose money is going. Track where your loose time is going because a lot of that is adding up to the personal skills that you cannot even build for yourself or maybe don't even want to build for yourself because you feel like you don't have enough time. You feel like you have to spend an hour on job applications. You feel like you have to look. You feel like you have to look, but you also aren't getting it. So it's that fear of rejection that is being triggered right there because you're not able to really get what you desire out of the process of doing job applications and stuff in that nature, right? Another point I wanted to make, small point, but the point of capitalism is to promote the flow of income, right? And How does America do that? How does any country really do that? Holidays, social media, the news, new trends, fashion models, new car every year, new phone every year. If you think about it in a calendar, right? From the New Year to Valentine's Day to March, I think that's St. Patrick's. Oh no, 4th of July. They added Juneteenth as a holiday, right? You see Walmart got cups and stuff like that. Anyways, July 4th to Labor Day to it's a lot of holidays, right? If we count all the holidays and everything that we see within a year and how much money you spend, how much time you spend, it's like the point of capitalism it's not so everybody can make some money. It's the point is the point of promoting entertainment, promoting things to distract yourself from your current situation, right? Because they've already put you through school, and now you have an okay job that you don't really like. Now I just need the money that you kind of have saved up. You know what I'm saying? It's not so that everybody gets a house and everybody has a good living. It's so that you can keep the money flowing through the economy, right? If you keep it all saved, capitalism doesn't exist. But if you spend it, well, it's going from this bank to this bank to this bank to this person to this investor. This person is investing in somewhere. It's flowing, right? So yeah, they social media can put a lot of those psychological themes that we don't even realize, right? So one thing I wanted to tell you is just you are a customer. Every time you spend money, every time you use your attention through social media, through whatever the case may be, every time you spend your money, you are a customer. You contribute to your own oppression. And it might not look like that. And like, nah, I'm just getting McDonald's. With the 30 minutes it probably took you to get McDonald's, which means 10 minutes maybe if the McDonald's is close, staying in line for 20 minutes and getting your food and maybe half liking it and then having to eat later, that's probably like an hour, right? You could have spent an hour cooking. You could have got the materials and spent an hour cooking. You probably would have had food to last you a little longer. And you probably would have felt more fulfilled. And you probably would have felt like you could have did more. But you spent more money kind of to it's just a small example, but anyway, you contribute to your own oppression of skills, oppression of time, and oppression of how much money you have to spend in other places. And also, I don't even know if oppression is the right word, but oppression of your freedom in terms of your emotional skills, how anxious you end up being, right? So yeah, that's what I have to say about really job insecurity and things of that nature. Um, Also, you create a nervousness in you. You start settling for any job to really keep up your social currency. If you think of it as social currency, you have to. All right, I don't like this job, but it's gonna get me maybe a band a month, maybe 2,000 a month, maybe 3,000 a month. Who knows how much? And then after, I'll have time to do my maintenance, my trips, and live a good life. But it's like you kind of have to keep up, keep up, keep up, and then next thing you know, you gonna be 30 with no social skills, years of clothes that you don't wear anymore, people who couldn't care what you wore 3 4 years ago, people that couldn't remember what you said in Jamaica 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, friends that you aren't even friends with anymore. And you're like, damn, well, what was all that money for? To keep you distracted, to keep you contributing to the economy, because the economy was flowing for the 5 years that you spent all your money, and it's not gonna stop flowing when you don't spend your money because it's a pipeline of things that just keep moving, right? So yeah, in terms of my call to action, just to recite the big point of why we're here, is for navigating college really through times of uncertainty. You really have to establish your future, get you really a vision of what you want your life to look like. What does it look like right now? What are some things you can cut? I don't expect anybody to listen to this and go cold turkey, but I expect you to. Well, I don't really expect anything from you. I expect you to take what you need to get from it and move on in life if you listen to it this far. But in terms of how can you change up your life, you can start doing one small thing at a time. Maybe I don't need McDonald's today. Maybe I'll cook something at home. Maybe I'll learn how to cook, get McDonald's, and maybe next time I'll cook. Just make small changes, be the change that you want to see, right? um but yeah, so for my call to action, I would say think of time as a construct, right? Think of time as a construct and not your value. A lot of times we can get a little bit lost. Start thinking of time as, well, I'm 21 now and I should have had this by 25. Obviously, that's an easy one. Or maybe I'm 18, so I don't have to figure it out. Or my 25th birthday is coming out. Or maybe the job wants you for 40 hours. That's 40 hours of your time. Think of time as a construct, right? It's meant to keep us in line, right? And in America, you have to be on time, late, early. We have a big emphasis of time. Think of time as a construct and not your value. For my next call to action, my second one out of four, find real friends that you don't have to keep up with. Find you a tribe. Or maybe not find them, but recognize your real friends that you don't have to keep up with, right? You might be finding friends that you do have to keep up with, like, yeah, bro, just come out, bro. And you might say, like, yeah, I just got fired. It's like, all right, well, you have any money saved? Because we're going to Jamaica. I just got fired, you know what I'm saying? So find, find real friends that you don't have to keep up with. But take away the fine part, recognize the friends that you don't have to keep up with, and strengthen that community, strengthen those bonds. You feel me? I feel like we sometimes leave those friends on the outskirts, and then when 10 years go by, you're like, damn, she was a good friend to me. He was a good friend to me. Anyways, yeah, so number three, define what makes you happy and doesn't pay you. You know what I'm saying? I feel like people's like, yeah, this does make me happy, but this is not making me money, so I'm not gonna do it anymore. Why would you limit yourself to just this currency, right? This changing currency that's just it's established. It's at the end of the day, it's paper, paper money. It's pulled from trees. It's pulled from whatever makes paper, right? Why would you hold your happiness to what we use to exchange currency right now? Because in another world, in an alternate universe, it could be pens. We're exchanging pens for, you know, for food, for fruits, right? So, it's just a small example, but it's just to say, like, really define what makes you happy and doesn't pay you. For me, doing this right now, a podcast, doing music, doing YouTube, doing I think I'm gonna do one-on-ones, but also just all the different projects that I have in my mind. It doesn't pay me. It might not pay me for 5, 10 years, God forbid. But like, it might not ever pay me. But I also do some drawing, and I also do a lot of different little things. Journaling doesn't pay me, meditating doesn't pay me, going to the gym does not pay me. But it makes me happy. It makes me feel fulfilled as a human being. So I don't have to keep up with certain things because I have those things that don't pay me, but they keep me happy and fulfilled. And therefore, I feel like I'm able to hear from God because I'm co-creating with the universe, right? God didn't put you here to just co-consume with everybody that's in your society, but you're here to co-create, right? So I think there could be a balance. You consume and you create, but there must be a balance. I feel like we have too much people on the consume side. You get 2K, you get a game, and you start creating a character within the game. You're still existing within this game world, and then you look in your 30s, still in that game world, not building those social skills. You don't want to be 40, 50, still on the game, still on social media, trying to keep up. But the addictive cycles, you might not stop it until you hit rock bottom. You don't want to wait until you hit rock bottom in order to grow and evolve, but you do want to recognize that bad patterns that you have or bad habits that you have that keep you in the same state of mind. And you might not even recognize that it is the same state of mind. You might see it as like, no, no, this was different, but it's a different fonts, but it's the exact same scenarios that you're going through. So you really have to. That's why journaling is amazing because you can look back at something you did 5 days ago and be like, damn, I was really emotional that day, and it feels very similar to this day. What pattern came up in me emotionally to establish that? By doing that, you kind of recognize maybe certain friends that you have might trigger you to get into an emotional pattern. Maybe certain people that you might have, maybe your job, and therefore you establish boundaries to access a higher you, right? So for my last point, I think I did it already. It's just to say co-create with the universe, and you'll get your answers. Whether that's crocheting, cooking, reading about love, right? Making cinema, going to museums, literally co-create, right? That is your primal, how to say, not primal, but that's your primary source of where you are, who you are. It's creation, right? You came from God, right? Source, whatever you believe in. You came from the universe, right? The universe created you because you came from your mother, and now you are in this world, right? She created another human being. Not that you have to create another human being, but you can create a body of work. You can create a entree that only you like. You could create a ball of yarn into something. I don't know. Really, you could create. There's a whole lot of things you can create, but you just have to kind of have a vision for it, or you have to see it, or you have to put it down on paper and know that this is what you're doing. You're co-creating with the universe. God is giving you the vision, the thought, and maybe you might see some signs, some coincidences, some alignments, some synchronicities to say keep going. And that is your guide as you are using the tools that God has given you. If God gives you some intuition, some type of thought, and you don't work on it, and you don't use it, you don't invest your attention into it, well, that thought is gonna boop go to somebody else, or maybe you just won't even know what to do with it anymore. It's not gonna relate to you because you didn't take the time that you could have to co-create. And sometimes it's just writing it down in a journal and being like, I wrote it down. Therefore, I put what God put in my head on paper, because you know that so much goes on in your head. You might move from, oh, what am I gonna eat today? Well, what did I eat yesterday? What am I gonna eat next week? Ooh, what we eating on vacation? Ooh, what is my mom cooking for Thanksgiving? Let me call my mom. You call your mom, she tell you about bills. Now you worried about bills, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna just watch Love Island. And then you remember, like, damn, I already watched this episode. So like your mind will go from so many different places. I only gave that little tangent to show that your mind will go from so many different places. So write down the things that you wanna work on, evolve in, and just something fell. Anyways, just by working on, lost my train of thought with that thing falling. Just by writing something down, it's like it kind of gets downloaded into your subconscious in a way, and now it's integrated with your hand movement. Right? You might not think of it like that, but if you try it out, you'll see. You'll probably start to notice more of what you can do in your life. So, yeah, I think that's my last call to action. That's all I got for this episode. For my outro, be safe, love on yourself. Remember, you are what you eat, you are what you consume, hence the name of the podcast. So, consume the type of energies that you want in your life. Let it flow through you. Become one with it with your intentionality. Be who you need to be in this world. Love on yourself. Thank y'all for listening. Until next time. Later.